Everyone, TV here with, yes, another Transformers figure review. I figured that, yeah, reminiscing about the good old times got me in a little bit of a gist here to get back into at least another one. And I knew that at some point I needed to delve into the Studio Series, because when I found out that the Studio Series was Hasbro pretty much going back to the original Transformer figures from way back to even 2007 with the first movie, and kind of revamp a couple of the figures that they've made in the past, and thought that maybe they could fix some things that were kind of messed up in the first place, I thought, you know what, this is a really good thing. I mean, you could argue that maybe they're kind of milking it dry a little bit, but I think, such is the case with this figure, there's some opportunities to fix some things that were definitely broken. And I knew that one of the figures that caught my attention when it was first unveiled was Transformers Studio Series Deluxe Class Autobot Jazz, as you can see right here. Now, I was a little nervous because, like I mentioned in the past couple of years, one of the things that's turned me off from collecting Transformer figures again was that they were getting way too costly, and I had to pull the trigger on this one at $20 for a deluxe class figure that is actually a little bit on the smaller side than some of the deluxe class figures that would come out back in 2007 when the first movie came out. And at that point, they were being sold for about $10, half the price as they are now. Trust me, it took me a good amount of good faith and strong will to actually go through with purchasing this figure. But I thought to myself, you know what? He actually looks way nicer than he did back in 2007. And that's, like I said, Autobot Jazz. Looking right there inside of its packaging. You got Transformers here on the side. It looks like that's going to be the ongoing motif for an awful lot of the packaging of recent Transformer figures, not just with the Studio Series, but also with like Power of the Primes, and like you saw in the last night Megatron reveal. Looks like that was the theme for the packaging back in 2017 as well. And so here we got this form of packaging that kind of resembles that. You got the window showcasing the figure in his robot mode, not so much in his vehicle mode like it used to be. The character Jazz right there with his name. He is Studio Series number 10. So apparently there's 10 of these bad boys out there. I don't just mean Jazz, but I mean like the entire line. So it's cool to kind of take a gander at them all. Don't count on me collecting all of them, because there's some Studio Series figures that I look at and go, you know what? The one from 2007 or 2008-ish, arguably, actually, kind of unanimously better. Bumblebee, I'm looking at you. That thing looks like a fucking travesty. I'm actually glad I'm sticking with my 2007 Camaro version, because Jesus Christ. Anyways, move on to the right here. We got Jazz right there, a little headshot of Jazz, Studio Series number 10, like I mentioned before. Move on to this side. We got a nice little portrait of Autobot Jazz with the Autobot symbol slightly askew there, so that kind of bugs my OCD somewhat. There at the top, you just got Transformers in the classic 2007 font. So it's cool that when you go to the store, you look at the top of the boxes and you can kind of tell which one's from which movie. So rather nice. Nothing going down at the bottom except the UPC, like I mentioned a number of times. And then the back, just like any other Transformer figure, you got him in his vehicle mode, which is, I believe, a Pontiac vehicle. I can't remember the model name. Unfortunately, it's been that long, but I know he's from Pontiac. And then, of course, the figure right there with this little accessory, little description of the character, and of course a bunch of other little doodads that they included here, as well as the recommendable figures from that line and a couple of other lines. I think there's a Voyager in there. Actually, no. Those are just the other deluxe figures, one of which, again, is the travesty of Bumblebee, and the other is the one that I was kind of tempted to get, but I just held on to, because again, they're so fucking expensive, $20, but that was locked down. I thought maybe like them, but no, $20, no. And then right here, something that I'm kind of excited to get to is the little diorama that they're including in these boxes. Something that's kind of brand new to the Studio Series line. So it's like, okay, cool, you're throwing in a little added bonus. I appreciate it. Besides that, that really about does it for his box. I am so sorry. I think I just banged the mic. My apologies. Hopefully that won't happen again. So now, let's crack open the box and take a look at Transformers Studio Series Jazz and see if they were able to fix one of the more common problems I think everybody had with that initial deluxe figure from 2007. Alright, here we have Transformers Studio Series Deluxe Class Autobot Jazz. Before we get what I consider to be one of the biggest elephants in the room when it comes to contemporary Transformer figures, Let's take a look at his vehicle mode, shall we? He is a Pontiac sports vehicle. Can't remember exactly what the model was, but I know it's a Pontiac, at least from the company name. It's a Pontiac. And he's a sports vehicle, so obviously he's going to have the sports look to him, as you can see right there. So he borderlines that of a convertible, except he's not a convertible, but at least he has that model look to him, like he belongs on the front of a magazine. I'm pretty sure he would be very proud of that. So there he is right there. Paint-wise, he's very much true to form. He's got that chrome silver metallic paint going all throughout him, with, of course, the exceptions being black for the tires, any kind of detailing going on, such as the side right here, what seems to be a grill there towards the front two wheels, and of course clear blue plastic for the headlights in the front, and also the translucent windshield and windows there on the sides, with a couple of touches of red for the standard issue backlights right there. Besides that, there's not a whole lot really to him, except that the actual mold of the figure is pretty decent. It's pretty good. He also rolls around rather nicely on the flat surface. The only little caveat is that his front two wheels do occasionally get stuck on the inside of the body. So you can see right there, they don't really rotate very well, but that's because for some reason these wheels, they need to be pulled to the sides, and when you pull them to the sides, you won't exactly hear it, but you're gonna feel like a little snap, and then that's when they're gonna be able to rotate freely. But when I press on the inside, let's see if I can really demonstrate it right there, but they feel a little sluggish. They feel like they're being restricted by something, so they have to be, there you go, see, that one is kind of stuck there, so I have to kind of give it a little tug. About there. Oh, you heard it right there? I don't know if you heard it, but I heard like a little snapping noise, and now they'll move very freely. So that's the only little caveat I can find here in vehicle mode, besides the obvious one. Other than that, you'll notice he has a very huge satellite dish here on the back that kind of looks like the what is it, the fuel compactor or whatever the hell it was called. God, I can't remember the name. I'm a huge fan of this movie, and yet I cannot remember the name of it, but the little energy thing that Doc Brown put on the back of the DeLorean at the end of Back to the Future, and then he uses for the majority of Back to the Future Part 2, it looks practically like that. So this is actually his weapon that he can house in vehicle mode. Of course, he looks mildly silly, so I'm going to remove it. It kind of rests on the spoiler here on the back. Removing it, you can set it to the side, and now he looks like the authentic, genuine article from the original 2007 film. And again, the actual molding of the vehicle and the way he kind of rolls around is rather nice. You know, I really don't have any huge qualms about the actual construction of the figure in vehicle mode. The only little issue is that you'll notice right from the get-go is that he is motherfucking small. And I know that this is something that I was already kind of getting myself into when purchasing a contemporary Deluxe class figure, because noticing them right off the bat from the pegs in the store, from Toys R Us back when they were still in business, to Target and beyond, I would always look at these figures and be like, they're getting too small and they're charging too much. There was something, however, about the design and the detail of Jazz in his robot mode that I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a chance on him. Transforming him from his robot mode to vehicle mode for the sake of the review, because for some reason now they're packaging them in robot mode, so I have to kind of move him over to vehicle mode, so that I always like to start up my reviews in vehicle mode for Transformer figures. God damn. I understand that he's meant to be a compact vehicle, but this is taking compact to a whole nother level. He is almost on the scale of a Hot Toys vehicle. Alright? Let that sink in. A Hot Toys vehicle. You see my fingers right here? Yeah, that's how tiny he is. He's so tiny that I actually had to take a chance and buy a macro lens for my camera. I'm actually using a macro lens right now so I can get kind of close to the figure and not lose focus. So, yeah, that kind of takes a pretty picture. And if that doesn't have you convinced enough, here we have Deluxe Class Jazz from the 2007 movie line. Back from 2007. Sure, far from a perfect figure, this one here. But look at the size. You were getting your bang for your buck. I mean, especially when that buck was actually $10. All right? This right here was $10. This right here is $20. I'm sorry, but in what universe does this kind of make sense? And I'm actually rather surprised to see that an awful lot of folks are okay with this. I don't know. I've been checking out some reviews, especially with Jazz, because there was a little issue that I needed a little bit of a fixer-up, and I'll comment on it when I get to the transformation. But so many folks were saying, yeah, this is a great figure. This is a great addition to the collection. That's not to say it's a shit figure, and not to give away my opinions on the figure completely just yet and spoil it. But guys, now you have to understand this right here is the reason for why I'm not a huge Transformers collector these days. I'm very pick and choose about my Transformers figures now because Hasbro's just not cutting it. They're just not cutting it. Maybe Takara Tomy are, especially with their Masterpiece lines, especially when they're focusing an awful lot on Beast Wars right now, which is one of my favorite Transformers series. But Hasbro, man, what is this? What is this right here? Come on. And I know it's, fluctuation, it's inflation. Actually, that's the word I was looking for. Inflation. So maybe $10 back in 2007 will equal to what is now $20. But you don't have to change the figure size. You really don't. I mean, I guess in a way it also kind of makes sense because maybe they're making the plastic a little bit more expensive to manufacture, especially when you take into account the planning for a Transformer figure, since it has to go from vehicle to robot and the transformation and the engineering behind that. But man, just to me personally, something's going to have to give if they want any more of my money on Transformer figures, because this right here is a clear-cut example as to why I'm so hesitant to get Transformers these days. But I digress. Anyways, let's move the original 2007 Jazz out of the way so we can now focus on the new Studio Series. So, again, the color scheme is pretty nice. You kind of noticed that the color was a little off between the 2007 Jazz and then the 2018 Studio Series Jazz. I do prefer the color on this one. It's a little bit more true to form. This one, a little opaque, and I do like the translucent headlights there in the front. So it's a little bit more accurate to how you look like in the movie. But again, it's that scaling that's just got me really on the edge, I guess you could say. Besides that, like I said, nothing else really going for him in vehicle mode, so I guess I have no choice but to go into the transformation. Now, you'll notice right here, he looks pretty seamless. Got a little bit of paneling going on right here on the doors, but nothing too bad. That's because there was an issue with the transformation that I needed to rectify, and that's why I needed to check out those other reviews for other people's insight onto how to fix this issue, which thankfully was fixed, because prior to that, man, oh man, the gaps here between the panels were bad. They were really bad, to the point where I was like, okay, I'm about to give this figure a legitimate demerit, because holy shit, the scaling plus pieces not meshing up right, my two biggest gripes with Transformer figures, especially the latter, because even with figure lines like this where the scale was just right, nothing would bug me more than to have a Transformer where I was following the instructions to the T and panels were just not lining up right, and I was questioning myself, did I get a defective figure, or is it the way that they manufactured it? Who knows? But thankfully I was able to find a fix for this, and I'll go into detail a little bit more once I get the transformation going. So to start things off for the transformation, we go underneath here, where you don't really see an awful lot of kibbling going on right here. I mean, you can kind of see a decent amount of symmetry going on, except for these two pieces here that are very unconventional for a vehicle. So you can kind of tell right off the bat that that's going to make part of his robot mode. And to kind of kick things off, this is one of those figures that, yeah, he's super compact, and because he's all compacted in a car, his transformation is literally just kind of undoing him from a makeshift fetal position that will then kind of expand into the robot mode. And to kind of start things off, we take these two pieces right here, and I'm going to reach in at the very tip right here and then kind of undo them from the body. It's a little difficult, but you can see, kind of did it right here, pull it out, and that's gonna undo this entire piece, and you can kind of see the door kind of unpaneling itself. Same thing on the other side. It's gonna kind of reach in here. This one might prove to be a little bit more difficult, but let me see if I could do it right here. There we go, like that. And you can see and already tell that this is primarily going to build the legs. So I'm just gonna reach inside and kind of pull, and that's going to take not only these entire doors, but also the entire front portion here, and just kind of undo it from the main body and extend it. There we go. Like that. Just gonna take this, and then we just reach inside and kind of give it a tug, and that's gonna pull it off to the side like so. Just be careful not to force something beyond the point where it needs to be. There we go. So getting on to what I was mentioning before about fixing that little issue, what I was kind of doing wrong was that these two pieces here that are primarily the legs, they are connected to the waist, and what I have to do is kind of reach in and pull this out to kind of form the legs. But real quick, I just want to show that on the back here we had a little slit that actually needed to go into this peg at the very top. Actually, it's still in there. There we go, and I unpopped it. So I'm going to take all the legs and the waist and just kind of flip it forwards like so, and you'll notice there's a little hole right there, and that actually went into there. And that's what you need to do when transforming him from robot to vehicle. Make sure he's all the way up there so that there's enough clearance for the arms to be folded in. And that was my biggest issue, and that's why I was getting an awful lot of paneling. So pulling that down, you can kind of already start to see, I'm going to rotate the arms upwards like so to get them out of the way, but you can kind of see the legs starting to form. So what we're going to do is take this entire waist piece here, right there, kind of fold it forwards. It's on 2 hinges, so you take it forward, fold it all the way forward, and then, actually before we do that, we gotta, and the complete figure just latched onto my microphone cable. Alright, before we do that, we actually have to take the entire front portion of the vehicle and rotate it 180 degrees, as you saw right there. So this whole thing rotates 180 degrees. And now we can take the waist right there and then just kind of fold it all the way forward to where these 2 tabs, you can see them, these 2 tabs right here are going to latch onto the hood of the car, or what was originally the hood of the car, and they're actually going to clip into place right there. There you go, and now the waist has formed. Then we're going to go down here where the feet are and just kind of take these panels, fold them all the way up to form the feet like that right there. Do the same thing on this one right here. Take this, fold it all the way. It's on 2 hinges. It's 2 separate pieces, 2 hinges, so you kind of have to wrap it all the way upwards like so. I'll demonstrate one more time. It's extended like that. You just got to take it and rotate it all the way up. And it's just going to sit there. It doesn't really clip into place or fit snugly into place. You're just going to have to let it rest there. Last little detail here on the feet is reach in here, pull out the heels like that right there. Do the same thing on the other foot. If I can, there we go. Right there. That's some awful big heels there. So stabilization and positioning is not going to be that big of an issue there. All right, real quick, gonna tilt the camera a little up, and I might have to zoom out a little bit. Except I can't zoom out enough. Got a micro camera lens. All right, so you can kind of see him starting to come together a little bit, and again, the stabilization on this figure is actually rather great because of those heels, but I'll talk about that more in depth after I finish transforming him. So you see him already starting to take a little bit of shape. The legs are pretty much done. The arms are for the most part also done. The only exception is that now we just have to kind of break it apart a little bit here at the elbow to kind of separate the panel, and then just reach in here, push this tab all the way around, and then just reveal the hands. That's literally it. So do the same thing over here. Push on this little black tab, rotate the entire piece around to show the hands on the inside. Break it at the elbow to kind of give it a little bit of a definition, I guess you could say it. And then just take the shoulders, and then there's so many joints here on the shoulder that I'll disclose in a second, but you're just gonna have to give it an extra little tug so that it's all the way up like that. Alright, and then he's almost there. And I might have to position the camera even further. And then the last couple of little finishing touches. So, and I'll kind of point the camera a little higher for this one. But we're going to take this entire piece here, break the spoiler down, fold it in, and then just take all of this right here, fold it down. Doesn't clip or anything, just kind of rests there. Then we're going to take the head from the inside there and just kind of press right here to flip it forward. As you see right there. And he popped back in. He's a little shy today. There we go. My biggest fingers. Alright, so just kind of fold the head up like that. Clips into place. And then lastly, to give it that transformed detail look, you take this middle panel here of the front hood or the front grille. You pull it out. It extends like that. And then you're literally just going to rotate it all the way around 180 degrees. So that now the little red detail there is now on the top side. Again, to give it that transformed look. That I remember some of the 2007 figures even had that going. Where it's like, okay, look, he's transformed. Okay. Kind of reminds me of Deluxe Jazz. I mean, not Deluxe Jazz, I'm sorry. Deluxe Bumblebee from the 2007 line where you had those two pieces on the side that you had to like move a little bit to give it like that transformed look. Alright, so now let me give him a slight pose there. Make sure that he's cool. Now let me back him up so you guys can actually see him. And now let me just position the camera one more time. Alright guys, thank you so much for bearing with the edits there. I just had to rearrange my camera, change the focus, yada yada. Anyways, here we have Autobot Jazz from the Studio Series line in robot mode. You can see right there that the detail and the scaling within his body actually looks rather nice. That's what kind of allured me about the figure, was that he was slimmer. He was looking a little bit much more agile, which is primarily what Jazz was in that original film. So it's like, okay, I get it. I like the little retconning that they kind of did with the robot mode of this figure. And to kind of give you guys an idea here, and I don't know if he's going to fit in the frame because, again, that scaling issue, but here I have Jazz in robot mode from that 2007 movie. I'll back him up a little bit so you can kind of see him right there. Barely fits in the frame, but you can see that he is bigger, but he looks rather clunky. If you remember one of my original comments of this figure back in 2007 when I originally reviewed him, and then in 2009 when I re-reviewed him for my brand new channel, I mentioned a comment along the lines of this feels like it was Frankenstein together from two different companies, or two different teams worked on the figure. The bottom portion of the figure is actually constructed rather well and sturdy, whereas the top half of the figure kind of feels like it was duct taped together. I'm sorry, for lack of a better term, especially the arms. My bad, I just touched the mic. But the arms right here are pretty much just panels. See right there? Panels, completely hollowed out inside, and they just felt kind of flimsy. I don't know, just kind of thrown together. The chest is protruding all the way forward, you see right there, and the head is just kind of sitting on there, right there. So yeah, I acknowledge that the robot mode of this figure, despite being a much more, I guess you could say, generous scale, he wasn't exactly the best, or at least the most accurate representation of Jazz in that movie, at least with his robot mode. Whereas this guy, yes, the scaling issue is still there. He's still the size of what I can consider to be a Legends class figure. And definitely not exactly warranting the 20%, I mean not 20%, the $20 price tag. I don't. But I'm not going to say I fully regret the figure, and the reason for why that is because of the robot mode looking detailed and agile as he is. So you can see right here that the actual look of the figure is to scale. His arms don't feel as flimsy as they did in that original Deluxe class figure, and you can see that the legs also look proportionate to the rest of the body. It doesn't look like it was made by two different companies. It looks like it was actually made by one team. It's just a shame that that team has to downgrade on the actual scaling of the figure and charge twice as much from they did in 2007. But again, I'm going to try to let go of that shovel. All right? For the time being, the detail and the actual construction of the figure is nice. The only little nitpick I would have is that all these years later, they still plant the hood or the top portion of the vehicle here as a backpack, so to say. It's a little less bulky and less clutter as it was in that 2007 figure, but it still kind of remains here in robot mode for the Studio Series version. Other than that, he's got great stability because those feet are rather huge and are really well supported by the heels here on the back that are rather large. So putting him in almost any kind of position is going to hold up just fine, especially because of how small he can be. It's very easy to knock him over, but I'm glad to see that he's got some really good stability where you can see right there, he's not going to be tipping over anytime soon. As far as those poses go, he's got pretty basic articulation. He can rotate the head 360 degrees. You just got to make sure that you pivot his neck slightly to kind of move the head out of the way, because he can kind of be a little constrained at the front here where the panels kind of disalign and kind of restrict his neck movement. So you just got to tilt his head slightly back, and then you can do the full 360 degree rotation as so. As far as the shoulder joints go, I mentioned he's got plenty of joints here in the top shoulders that I'm actually rather pleased with. So he can definitely rotate 360 degrees vertically, as you can see right there, move up and down, side to side, and then also kind of do a little bit of diagonal rotation, only because, like I said, there's like 2 different hinges going on in the shoulder there that allow for some really good mobility. Then you got basic elbow joints that form the L shape there, as well as a ball joint here in the forearm that allows a little bit of swivel going on right there. The hands are not really well articulated. In fact, it's just literally the 2 pieces that rotated during the transformation. So he's got a little bit of vertical movement, but nothing really side to side. You can only do so much with a figure of the scale, as I mentioned. And again, could be considered one of the biggest detriments of this entire age of Transformer figures we're in right now. You do have 2 basic ball joints at the top of the legs. They do feel a little loose, so I'm a little concerned about that, but I'm glad to see that at least the footing is going to counteract that slightly. You also got swivel joint there towards the top of the leg, as well as a very fluid knee joint here at the knee. So a knee joint that not only bends backwards, but also kind of bends forward slightly. Granted, that's there for the transformation, but at least it's going to help out during poses. As for the leg, or foot as it were, he does pivot slightly inwards like so, but that's only because of a combination of both the transformation and then a little bit of jointage going on right there. So I'm appreciative of that, especially when you do want to put him in some kind of action pose. He's able to kind of pivot his feet slightly like that, so it looks like he's in action. And again, with the stability of those heel pieces, as well as the overall size of the shoe or the foot, posing this figure, especially in that cool hippity hoppity type thing he's got going on, or at least the thing that Michael Bay put in that 2007 movie of him being, one could say, ethnic. You know, you can put him in that pose. Unfortunately, no waste of articulation of any kind, but that's only because the 2 pieces are just kind of conjoined together, as you saw during the transformation. Besides that, posability and the thinness of the figure that doesn't feel as cluttered as that the 2007 Deluxe class figure did, allows for the figure to at least look a little bit more accurate to his screen counterpart as that 2007 movie did. I just wish that we would have gotten him in that size of the 2007 version. Granted, some of you might be posting in the comments right now saying, "Hey David, that's practically the Human Alliance version." Well, I missed out on the Human Alliance version, unfortunately. And to find it would be either to go on eBay as Ladiesman217 or to fork over like almost $200 on Amazon, which is fucking ridiculous. Moving on to his one and only accessory is that satellite dish that I showed earlier. Forms into a gun by taking this piece right here, flipping it down, and now he can fit it into one of his hands. Funny thing about the hands, his left hand is kind of shaped like a circle, whereas his right hand shaped like a spire. I don't know what to call that, but it's weird. It's really weird. Out of the two, I prefer to put it in the left hand because it looks like the ideal one to hold a gun or radar blaster or whatever this thing it really is. Other than that, doesn't really move here, doesn't shoot anything. It's just mainly for show. But hey, at least they threw something in. Alright, so let me pose him here to close out the review. Which, again, not unhappy that I got him, but definitely that selective figure that I was mentioning about these things. At least the more contemporary figures where I'm like, yeah, $20 for something this tiny is just not gonna cut it for me personally. But that's only because I just feel like we were spoiled with those 2007 and 2009 figures where they were doing some really great things with the sculpt, the transformation, the detail, and now we have to resort to this where we sacrifice one thing for another. It's either the quality of the figure's not there, but at least the sizing is, or the size of the figure's not there where you got something that requires a macro lens to be filmed, but at least the detail and the scaling is actually an improvement over that 2007 version. And with Jazz, I'm glad that I got him, but those issues still remain. But it's an issue that I think we're just going to have to live with until we get some kind of renaissance of Hasbro trying to go back to the times of 2007, 2009, where we were having those really awesome and properly scaled figures that were worth the money. For the time being, I'm going to give Autobot Jazz from the Studio Series line a solid 7 out of 10. Would have been a low 7 if I hadn't come up with that or I didn't figure out the solution for the transformation to keep the paneling from happening. But again, if we had solved the scaling issue, we wouldn't have had those domino effect issues of some of the detailing and some of the things kind of counteracting within the positioning. But anyways, that's just my opinion, one man's opinion. That's a little late to the game. For those of you who have been collecting these figures for the past couple of years, most notably the Studio Series line, let me know in the comments what you guys think of the Studio Series Autobot Jazz figure. Do you think that it's worth the money? Do you think that they made improvements over the 2007 version? Or do you think that Hasbro's got a long way to go to earn some goodwill back? Please let me know in the comments. Make sure you like and share this video, and do not forget to subscribe for more reviews coming very soon. Until next time, guys, see you later. I don't know if at this point they managed to incorporate mocap, but the way they run, or the way it's like they didn't get the proper people to interpret some of these folks. There's a couple scenes where Peter has to run and he just has like the most wimpiest run, and it just did not translate very well.
Parker! That's the third call I got about giant lizards running amok in Gramercy Park. Giant lizards! Pronto!